For India's million-strong armed forces, there's lots to celebrate these days. An aging fleet of Soviet-era equipment, though it can still thrill the crowds, is set to be replaced. A $40 billion upgrade to India's arsenal, equipping it with firepower to match its emerging economic prowess.
New jet fighters, artillery, submarines, and tanks, the Indian military believes they're essential. But critics say this massive military expenditure is indefensible in a country where 2/3 of the people still live in poverty. In the flight path of these war machines, less than a kilometre from the military base, people are still waiting for proper sanitation, wishing their children could get a decent public education, wondering even how they'll survive past next week. Our young people need better schools and jobs, says this man. Old folks like me need a pension and some help buying food so we can get by. India spends about 2.5% of its gross domestic product on defense, but it's a tough neighborhood. Asian rivals, China and Pakistan, each allocate around 5% of their GDP. Still, there's fierce debate around India about whether it spends too much.
The Indian elite is so completely insensitive to its own people, so completely callous that it thinks it is perfectly reasonable to spend billions and billions of dollars upon armaments while millions of people starve.
I mean, look at the United States of America. $640 billion. It's not as if the United States does not have serious social issues which need investment. But clearly, the decision of the political leadership, and it is supported by the people, is that the country needs this expenditure.
Whether Indians support this rapid rise in arms spending depends a lot on what they already have, what vision they see for their country. Matt Mcclure, Al Jazeera, Delhi.
Well, DEBAR MOHANTY is a specialist on defence and strategic affairs. He joins me now from Delhi. Thanks for being with us. In July, India's Prime Minister said the rise of Asian economies would change the global balance of wealth and power. Are the military purchases about ensuring that India has the military muscle to protect this new world order it aspires to?
Well, it's not about flexing or increasing military muscles, but as Commodore Bhaskar pointed out, that security necessities are important, keeping in mind the changing geostrategic realities in and around India's neighborhood as well as beyond the region. For example, like India has increased its role in maritime security affairs. It's a question of how India deals with these emerging security threats, both in the conventional and nuclear fronts, which still do exist, which are still in the realms of possibility, but more importantly, which the non-traditional security threats, for example, like terrorism, which have come up in the last couple of decades. So I would argue that
you, but terrorism can't be dealt with by new fighter jets, can it?
No, fighter jets are part of the overall military modernization program.
So is that really, is it about security threats or is it about regional power rivalry, particularly perhaps concern about the rising influence of China in the Indian Ocean?
Well, China is certainly a major factor. I mean, China, it may not be necessarily a formidable security, immediate formidable security threat, but certainly China figures in the security calculus of India.
Do you agree with those who say that perhaps the money could have been better spent in providing things like food, water and education for the millions of impoverished people in India?
Well, that brings us to a different debate altogether, on a different plane. I mean, if you're talking about defense and development, yes, I mean, development is more important. I concede that point. But if you see the trends in military expenditure, purely in the global terms, in comparatively, if you compare them with the major powers in the world, for example, like United States or other powers in Europe, you can deduct your own conclusion. I mean, India's total military budget is about $21 billion US, and it figures nowhere in the big spenders. On the other hand, On the other hand, you could argue that India's recent purchases, India's recent surge in capital expenditure is quite formidable, but not in the global standard, let me argue. But it has been primarily necessitated by the acquisition for both the replenishment purposes as well as force multiplication purposes.
Right, we'll have to leave it.
Multiplication doesn't necessarily.
All right, I'm sorry, we are running out of time, so we'll have to leave it there. DEBAR Mohanty from Delhi, thank you very much.
Right, thank you. Thank you.